What is up, you guys? It is Margot. If you guys have been following along with me this semester, you will know that I have been living in Europe, specifically London. I've been studying abroad here. I have a ton of videos. I will link them below. I have like a travel playlist that they will all be in. But today I wanted to make a helpful video. I've been doing a lot of vlogs of traveling. We've gone to, I think I've been to 12 different countries this semester, which is an absolute dream. But I can also see how it's very intimidating if you're starting your study abroad, or even if you're just in the States or wherever you live and you want to do a little weekend trip and you don't know how to go about it. I have a few tips that I hope will be very helpful for you guys. I honestly recommend that you get a pen and paper or your notes app or whatever. Start writing these things down, because I do really think that they will help you guys plan trips, because it's very intimidating at first. So yeah, let's just hop right into it, shall we? So the first and foremost thing that you should be thinking about is who you are going on these trips with. Depending on who you're traveling with is going to change where you travel, how you're traveling, what you need to book, very different things. Pick, I would say, up to 2 to 3 travel buddies. After you get to a group of 4, it gets a lot harder to travel, just because everyone's gonna wanna do different things. It's harder to get reservations. So if you have a bigger group, that's fine, but it might be a little bit harder. For most of my travels, we were a group of 3 and it was perfect. So congratulations, you have your travel buddies, or at least for this trip. So the next step is to decide where you're going. So if you guys are anything like me, you have a list of bucket list places you want to go. Take that list out and figure out what makes sense geographically. So if you only have 2 days to explore the city, it might not make sense to travel somewhere that's more than like a 3-hour flight, because then you're spending so much more time traveling and not actually getting to explore the city. Whereas if you have a week, you might want to figure out a few different cities that are geographically close to each other that it's easy to travel between. For example, we had our spring break and we ended up having 10 free days because of the way that our class schedule was designed. We picked 4 cities, and then we ultimately knew we were going to end up at Dublin because it was kind of like a big meetup spot for a lot of abroad kids. So geographically, we didn't want to go too far from Dublin, but we wanted to get out of England. So we decided to do Madrid, Granada, Sevilla, Lisbon, and then Dublin. Don't be afraid to pull out a map and figure out what makes sense. If you have limited time living in Europe like I did, I only had about 3.5 months. You have to make the most out of each weekend. But now that you have decided where you are going and who you are traveling with, the first thing that you should be planning and reserving and just getting done are your hotel or like living accommodations and your travel accommodations. These are really important to do as far in advance as possible, because supply and demand, they will get more expensive and it will be harder to find things. I traveled with my friends Gabby and JC for the most part, and I will give them all the credit for finding amazing hotels and also figuring out the travel. My general advice for this is, in terms of where you're staying, check out the prices. A lot of people think hostels are a lot more cost efficient, but for us, since we were splitting hotel rooms, it really would only save us about $10. And we were willing to pay that $10 for peace of mind of just knowing our stuff was in a hotel room and more secure, and we had our own space. I know that living in hostels can be such a great experience and you can meet amazing people. I don't really have regrets for not doing that, just because we would leave in the morning, come back at night, and just knowing that we had a hotel to come back to and a nice comfortable bed made a really big difference for us. I know that might sound really like privileged, but it was pretty much the same price as hostels, so just look into that. But the most important thing when you're planning wherever you're staying is that first of all, it's safe, and second of all, try to get as central as you can. Again, you might be spending a little bit more money to be in the center of the city, but then you're saving so much money on transportation in and out to wherever you're staying. Same thing with travel. If you're a student, you can look at Student Universe. They have usually discounted flights, but we also just use Google Flights. Very easy, and also gave us really cheap options. One thing that I will say is you are going to have to sacrifice some sleeping in or going to bed early, because usually the cheapest and best flights are super early in the morning. So it'll be like 5 or 6 a.m., but that means that you probably have to wake up and leave for the airport 2 to 3 hours before then. One question I got is how much in advance would we plan our trips? The only thing that we planned before coming abroad was our hotel in Dublin, and that was because we knew that it was going to be insanely packed and expensive, which it was. And even planning it like 3 months in advance, just the hotel room, it was absurdly expensive because we are going to Dublin for St. Patrick's Day. So other than that, I would say we planned our trips 3 to 4 weeks in advance. And the closest we planned a trip, I decided that I was going to Prague and Budapest about 3 to 4 days before my flight. Moral of the story is the earlier you can plan things, the better, but you're also given the amazing opportunity to decide to travel on a whim. Just be prepared for mishaps or harder to find flights or whatever. The next thing you should be focusing on after accommodation and travel is any big important reservations. This you definitely have to do research for. So for Granada, we found out that you should be making reservations or getting tickets to go to the Alhambra 90 days in advance, and we did not know that, and we were so lucky to get the last tickets before they sold out. I can't give you a list of each country things that you should be booking in advance, but that's just what you should be Googling right when you decide to book a trip. Figure out what's important to book right then. Okay, so now that you've gotten the more stressful, time-intensive things out of the way, you get to decide what you want to do there. Definitely wouldn't recommend just going to a country and saying that you're going to figure it out when you're there, because chances are you're going to miss a lot of the things that you would otherwise want to be doing if you were more knowledgeable about where you were. For each city that you go to, I recommend that you start creating a list of things that you want to do, places you want to eat. Don't get too hung up on the restaurants. I know people that when they travel, the only things that they have when they go to countries are restaurants. And although obviously food is a huge part of the culture, I think a lot of that was just because it was like Instagrammable or kind of dumb reasons. You're going to these places to experience the culture, at least that's my mindset. So we looked into historical places to go, things that you can only do in that country, and food opportunities. Food opportunities, what? Cool restaurants or places that we wanted to eat. So how do you hear about these places? The best thing that you can do is talk to a local. So whether you have a social media platform that you can ask for advice, or if you have friends that have lived there, or friends that have traveled abroad there, friends that are studying there, family friends, use your network to get recommendations. These are going to be the best places because they're going to be a little bit more hidden or underground that really only locals know about. For the rest of kind of the filler of things that you need to do, Google it. Pinterest is a great place to start for finding blogs for people that have traveled there. I promise you, for any city that you visit or any country, there will be a list online of places that are recommended. These can even be more hidden places if you really do your research and find good blogs for that. Take an hour out of your day, do the research, and just make a list of places that you want to go. Next tip, this is my favorite tip, so listen up. Okay, this was our holy grail. It's so helpful, and now I do this for like any place in the world. Every time I hear about someplace, I make a map of it on Google Maps. So I'm gonna show a screen recording of how I do this, but essentially you are going to be taking that list that you made, make a map for that trip that you're going on. So if you're going to Paris, make a Paris travel map. Or even if it's New York and you're hearing about recommendations, make a New York map. And what you're going to be doing is adding to this map of all the places that you were recommended or that you made a list. As you're doing this, make sure to kind of code them, whether it's a restaurant or a bar or a museum or sightseeing or a hike, because it's going to make it a lot easier to look at on your scale instead of just seeing 50 pins and you don't know what they are. As you're doing this, you can also edit the pin and add more information. So if somebody gave you a restaurant and they wrote a few sentences about it, put that into the map, because when you are either traveling there or trying to make your plans, if you have a little description of what each place is, it's going to make deciding where you're going a lot easier. Now that you have this city with pins all over it of places that you were recommended or places you want to go to or just historic landmarks or whatever it may be, this is when you can start planning your actual days out. Zoom out of the map and look at the different areas that you have recommended. If you're in the city for 2 days, you're not going to want to be bouncing from the north to the west to the east and doing all these things that just don't really make sense geographically, because you're going to be spending a lot of your time traveling. My next tip, I didn't actually use this, but we found it pretty late in the semester and I feel like it could be kind of helpful, but that is Google Travel, I want to say, or Google Trips. It basically gives you walking tours or day tours, recommendations, things that you are probably gonna like. It's actually kind of creepy. Like my friend Gabby, every place we went, there were vintage stores recommended and vegan places. Like it was tailored to her. And also, if you have an extra day in the city and you don't know what to do, get on that app and they will recommend a walking tour or a driving tour with 6 or 7 spots on it. Another tip I have is don't be afraid to do day trips wherever you're staying. So when I was in Florence, I actually did 2 day trips. I did one to Tuscany and we did a wine tasting tour. And then I did one with my cousin to Bologna. We were given that luxury because she's studying in Florence and I've already been to Florence. So I didn't really feel like I needed 4 full days there. So if you have anywhere like that, or if you feel like it's a smaller city and you can do it in a shorter amount of time, but you have more time there, don't be afraid to look into the day trips, because that's when you can get out of the city and really get to experience the culture of the local people that live there. Also, I can't believe I haven't mentioned this, but when you're in the city, don't be afraid to change around your plans. Talk to locals. That's the absolute best thing you can do. Whoever you can connect to, just be so friendly and ask them if they have any recommendations for you. As I said earlier, people that have lived there and have experienced the culture will have the best advice for you, because they know how to do the city the best. Before you go, you're obviously gonna pack. You wanna do some research about what the weather is going to be like. I just made a blog post about general, like what to bring abroad. So you would basically be picking from that. My general advice for weekend trips is pack by using outfits, bring comfortable shoes, and then leave a little bit of space in case you go shopping or find some cool souvenirs wherever you're going. I definitely could go on and on about planning weekend trips, but I don't want to overwhelm you. Just be confident, enjoy yourself, try to experience as much as you can, and you're gonna have a great time regardless. I hope you guys found this helpful. If you have any questions or comments, leave them in the comments below. Love you guys. I hope you have a great day, and I will see you in my next video. I have a lot of London vlogs coming up for you.
Walking downtown and I'm okay. He's got it all figured out.